Good morning. Today is Wednesday, November 6, 2024. In this week's Torah portion of Lech Lecha, we meet a person named Malki-Zedek. That's his name, and he is Melech Sholem, the king of Sholem. I assume one of the small kingdoms that was there. He is also described as a priest, as a holy person. And Malki-Zedek, in the aftermath of a war in which Avraham participated and helped to defeat an enemy, Malki-Zedek gives a bracha to Avraham, a blessing. He blesses Avraham. And as part of that blessing, Malki-Zedek presents a meal to Avraham, a meal, hotzi lechem v'yayin. He brings a meal that has bread, and there's wine, and they're having this meal, and in the midst of the meal, Malki-Zedek delivers this blessing to Avraham. There's a sefer, a Jewish book, titled Mish'b'tzei Shlomo. It is a commentary on the Torah, and he makes an incredible insight. He says that not just the meal by which Malki-Zedek was to give a bracha to Avraham. It's not just that he wanted to give Avraham a bracha, so he does it within a meal. I mean, that's a very nice thing. It was that. It was a blessing being given within the context of a meal. But what Malki-Zedek served was also its own bracha. And it has been the secret of success and flourishing of the Jewish people from then till our day. Regardless of the vicissitudes of history, the ups and downs of what happens to us, this meal, hotzi lechem v'yayin, is the secret of our success and flourishing up to and including this day. Because wine is a beverage that increases in quality as it ages. The older it is, the better it is. Bread is best fresh, baked just now. And those two foods, and putting them together to form a meal, reflect a truth about Avraham and a truth about the Judaism Avraham began. Our sages tell us that Avraham had coins. I guess it was common for individuals before sovereign states made coins, but he had coins with the stamped, engraved coins. And our sages tell us maybe it wasn't a coin, maybe it was a seal, but it looks something like a coin with two sides to it. Matbea shel Avraham Avinu, the coin that Avraham made for himself, Zokeh mitzad zeh, ubachur mitzad zeh. One side had an image of Avraham as an elderly man, and the other side had an image of Avraham as a young man. The bracha, the blessing that Malki-Zedek gives to Avraham, is to always hold on to that dual personality. To be able to hold on to the loyalty to the Torah, to the observance of Torah, that we received going back to Moshe and even further back to Avraham, and to clothe it and to authentically apply it within the freshness and accessibility of our time. So that Torah should always be for us, Judaism should always be for us, both old and young, both preserving our traditions and commandments and values, and applying them and adapting to the current circumstances in which we found ourselves. That's the reasoning behind the phrase altanoi, old, new, the combination of old, new. It was once suggested as That should be the title of the city that we now call Tel Aviv. Originally, someone wanted to call it something different. Okay. But the Mish'b'tzei Shlomo writes as follows. B'shnei hasamolim ha'ela, with these two symbols, that is, the bread and the wine were not just the substance of the meal that they were drinking and eating, it was also the symbolism of these two foods. Hevtiach lo was a guarantee to Avraham of kiyum v'nitzchios olamos, of permanent, eternal freshness. With these two foods, with these two characteristics, we continue to receive this bracha even today, which assures us today, as it did Avraham almost 4,000 years ago, of kiyum v'nitzchios olamos, eternal, permanent strength and flourishing. Let me show you this in action today. Because at no time is this more evident than after a calamity. When a calamity occurs, when a catastrophe occurs, that's when we need to be able to reconstruct, to recreate. And we have to be able to do so with both the bread and the wine. We have new ways of doing things, but we also have to hold on to our older ways of doing things. So this is something that was told by Sivan Rahav Meir. It happened last week, and it is a perfect example of what I'm discussing. In last week's Torah portion, the parsha of Noach, what Noah had to deal with, Noah and his family had to deal with, was how do you rebuild after a catastrophe? The whole world was destroyed by flood. Noah and his family are the only humans alive. And that's the tremendous, I don't believe any of us can imagine what Noah went through, the challenge that Noah faced after the entire world was destroyed by flood. How do you rebuild after that? And it is also the enormous challenge that we are grappling with now in Israel and around the world. How do we hold on to wine as we bake new bread? So this story happened last week. It was Simchas Torah in Israel. Simchas Torah, you remember, that was a week ago last Thursday. For us, Simchas Torah was Friday, but in Israel, Simchas Torah was Thursday, and that, of course, last year was October 7th. So on this year's Simchas Torah, there was an event that was held at a hotel in Jerusalem for families who a family member was killed, murdered on October 7th, families of the hostages, plus about 100 survivors of the Noah Music Festival. And they were all there together. There's an organization called Kesher Yehudi, Jewish Connection, had invited all these people to share this very, very difficult day and to mark it together. So, as everywhere in the world on Simchas Torah, we dance with the Torah scrolls. And there was one young man sitting to the side, and he was trembling, he was looking down. Obviously, he was remembering the atrocities that he and us will never forget of what he witnessed that day. Eliyahu Libman, L-I-B-M-A-N, Eliyahu Libman was the father of Eliyakam, who was killed on October 7th. So this is Eliyahu, his father. And he sees this young man off to the side, recalling the horrors of what happened, certainly not able to get into any kind of Simchas Torah spirit of holding and dancing with the Torahs, which is certainly understandable. But Eliyahu went over to this young man, and he said to him, "Do you realize that it's exactly 1 year ago that my son Eliyakam was rescuing people along the Gaza envelope until he himself was murdered? It's the first anniversary of his death. It's his yahrzeit. His father is observing his yahrzeit on that day." But he says to this young man who is a survivor of that gruesome attack, he says to this young man, today is his Memorial Day and also the day of your rescue. And I ask you that each year you do not only remember those you lost, but also experience the miracle you experienced, that on this day you were given a new lease on life. Your life was spared. You survived this. And then Eliyahu went on. But I also want to ask you for something else. You tell me, this young man had said to Eliyahu, you tell me that for the entire year you've been tormented by the question of why your friends were killed and you survived. And it's a question that we know almost everyone in this situation asks themselves. So Eliyahu says to this young man, so I want you to answer this question for yourself. Why am I still here? If you survived, there must be a reason for it. There is more work for you to do in this world. So, how can you bring meaning to your life? If you have been given another chance, how are you going to fill your days with purpose? Ask yourself, at least once a year on this anniversary, ask yourself, what am I doing with the tremendous gift that I received on that day? The second lease on life. After a flood, after a calamity, we must rebuild. And in order to do so, we must dig deeper into ourselves to find meaning and purpose in our lives again, to restore both the bread and the wine of our heritage. My friends, I wish you a great day, and I look forward to seeing you again soon in person.